John Bolton, welcome to the programme.
Glad to be with you.
So a federal judge this week is going to decide whether or not to release the affidavit that describes why or the reasons for the raid or the visit to Mr. Trump's house in Florida. What do you expect it to show about the justification for that search?
Well, I think at least in conventional wisdom terms, people don't really expect much will be released. The magistrate has indicated some willingness to consider it. I believe the Justice Department will fight very hard against it. They're prepared to take it up, to appeal to a real judge to make sure it doesn't happen. I've actually put forward a separate idea, which is to paraphrase some of the sensitive materials to try and reduce the amount of information that might be disclosed, because it's a gift to Donald Trump to have the ability to say, I'm being persecuted by the Department of Justice. And to the extent you can provide information to the American people that doesn't violate really long-standing practices about privacy in criminal investigations, I think trying to get some information out would be a good thing.
You say it's a gift to Donald Trump. It's clearly been the source of enormous fundraising since that search took place. But is there not also a danger for him that some of the details about the documents that they were trying so hard to retrieve would actually be damaging for him?
Well, I think there are two battles going on here simultaneously. One is the legal battle, and I think he's in trouble on that score. I think if the affidavit were released, it would paint a pretty devastating picture of what he's done with the documents post-presidency, endangering national security. But Trump's not really fighting the legal battle so much as he is the political battle. And in that sense, he can say, I'm being picked on by a politicized Department of Justice, and that's how he raises money. It's how he raises his profile. It gets support for him that he otherwise wouldn't have.
Just first of all, why do you think he took these documents to Mar-a-Lago? Was it simply as a sort of form of exotic souvenir, or something that he intends or intended to leverage later?
I think people give him too much credit in thinking that this was part of some plan to make money or to exert leverage over people. I think he just saw things and he wanted this and he wanted that. When he had intelligence briefings, the briefers would try to give him pictures and graphs to help get the information into his head, and he'd say, well, I'd like to keep that. And it was a constant source of worry. But I think it's an acquisitiveness that really doesn't have a strategy behind it. It's just, I see something, I want it, why shouldn't I have it?
When you saw the way that he handled classified material at the time, are you suggesting that it doesn't need to be nefarious, it can be just so much as something that he wants to own?
Right, and I think that it's also explained why a lot of this stuff potentially ended up at Mar-a-Lago. He didn't admit that he lost the election until people a few days before January the 20th said it's time to pack this stuff up. So the normal way that a transition would occur with people from the National Security Council staff, people from the White House counsel's office, reviewing the documents and separating what was personal legitimately from what were government documents never took place.
Now, what we're looking at here is we're using the term classified documents, and he has said that he declassified those documents himself leaving the White House. What do you make of that assertion?
Well, the argument about declassification is, I think, largely made up. There's no doubting the constitutional authority of a president to declassify pretty much whatever he wants, but he has to make that decision manifest. He has to communicate it to the bureaucracy. Not that they can overrule his decision, but if you say he declassified documents he took to the residents to read, they're not declassified just as to Donald Trump. They're declassified for the whole world. And I spent 17 months as National Security Advisor. I never heard of this standing order at all. I never saw any evidence it was being implemented. I think it was completely made up.
So he's lying?
He is.
In terms of the documents, we're using the term classified, but there are different grades of classification. How secret are these documents?
Well, some of them go to the very highest levels of classification, including material that involves potentially revealing sources and methods of intelligence collection. Now, until we see the documents, we can't tell. It's possible he has documents that are marked top secret, sensitive, compartmented information that were later declassified by somebody else for other reasons. So I think it's important in the normal course to withhold judgment about how serious this is. But it strikes me that the Justice Department would not have taken the extraordinary step of executing a search warrant against a former president unless it thought it had good reason.
One of the things that was picked up on previous visits was security footage at Mar-a-Lago. What do you think that could show that's significant in pushing them towards actually carrying out a search at the premises?
Well, I think it would show people going into and out of the area where the documents were stored. Presumably good security camera footage has the date and time at which it's taken, and they could correlate that to phone calls that Justice Department or FBI people had made, so that it would be some evidence that after being told about a concern, perhaps documents were being moved out or put in some other location.
Where do you think this goes next? Is it about the Department of Justice and the system wanting to get its documents back, which it's entitled to hold securely? And will therefore the investigation stop there? Do you think it's about retrieving the documents, or is this the beginning of something that's going to turn into a prosecution?
Well, I can only refer to what the Department of Justice said in the hearing, where the magistrate gave them until Thursday to come up with redactions, and that is they said the investigation was in an early stage. So certainly retrieval of the documents could have been part of it, but it appears from their own statements there's potential for much more.
And do you think that Donald Trump understands the position that he's in now? Given that you know him personally, we know what he's doing publicly. Do you think he understands the peril that this investigation poses for him?
I think over his career he's escaped from essentially every serious legal peril he's ever been in, and I would be surprised if he didn't think he was going to escape from this one as well, which is why his reaction has been primarily political. Even when he has said he wants the full affidavit made public, his lawyers have not said that in court. This is just politics so far for him, I think.
And what effect does this have on him as a potential candidate?
Well, that's why it's been a gift, because it has allowed him to say to his supporters, they're picking on me again. This is a politicization of the Department of Justice. Republicans have come to his defense.
And what about more widely? Because certainly it would have that effect on, let's say, the MAGA crowd. But what about more broadly? Does it damage him politically?
Well, I think it depends on the outcome of the investigation. And I think in the short term, it certainly helps him in a number of ways. But I think as observers in the United States have pointed out, just as a practical matter, and I speak as an alumnus of the Department of Justice, that if you're going to go after a former president, you better be sure you get him. And if the Justice Department hasn't thought that through fully, then there could be real trouble ahead for it.
Let me just ask you a question from an Australian point of view. We obviously have a long-standing intelligence sharing arrangement between our country and others. It naturally makes people wonder whether the US is secure enough in the way that it handles information. Are those fears justified?
Well, I think the security system for the United States has held up very well. The problem is Donald Trump, who in this, as in so many other areas, is a total aberration.
But doesn't the aberration show the system is flawed?
No, I think this is the system now trying to correct the aberration. I've said in my book I didn't think he was fit to be president. This is an example of it.
John Bolton, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Glad to be with you.